Well, I've always been a big admirer and loved the way Stanton plays. So I wanted to study again. I hadn't studied with anybody since Gary Chester. And I checked around different sites. As I say, I love the way Stanton plays, and so I checked out the Academy. Sure enough, for the best birthday Christmas present I ever got for my wife, did the year subscription. I love it the way Stanton teaches that. He shows you things that you can use at a gig. I mean, they're not really just an exercise. This is how you work and get to this riff or this particular, and then this is how you can apply it and you can use it. So I love that. I went to school out in Ohio University. Then 4 years, came back and wanted to study with somebody again. So I got my first job out of college. I was assistant manager for Favor Shoes. And this 20-some-odd-year-old girl walks in, and I'm helping her out, and we were talking, found out that she played drums. And she found out that I played drums. And I asked her, oh, I would love to study with, I'm trying to find a teacher to study with. Are you studying with anybody? I asked her. She goes, oh yeah. In fact, I'll be going to my lesson soon. I studied with Gary Chester, and I almost fell to the ground. Didn't even know he was teaching, knew who he was. And I said, boy, I'd love to study with him. She goes, well, I've got a lesson coming up. I can ask and see if he's taking any new students. She goes, oh, I talked to Gary. Here's his phone number. He's expecting a phone call from you. Give him a call. And again, I'm like, dumbfounded here. So yeah, I called him. And he said, yeah, well, come on up and we'll meet and we'll talk and all that. So drove up to Pomona Country Club, which is where he lived. Went to his studio that was in the house. We talked. I'm shaking like a leaf. I mean, I was a nervous wreck. He puts me behind a pad and says, okay, play a paradiddle. Play a paradiddle. Play a radimacue. Play a radimacue. Play a double stroke roll. Okay. Then he says, get behind the kit. I get behind the kit. He tells me, all right, put your right hand on the hi-hat, and he throws a bass line in front of me, and he plays. So, I mean, I'm giving him basic, probably 8 notes, 2 and 4, and, the bass drum line. Okay. And then he throws in one of his systems, and it totally spins my head. And I said, okay, I blew this royally. And then he goes, okay, yeah, all right, I'll take you. And we did it. He took me on. You pull up to the house, you walk in through the patio, and walk through the sliding door, and there's the studio. Gary Chester's in the corner, smoking cigarettes. He smoked like a fiend. He had his ashtray, his pedestal ashtray with his cigarette butts in it. This is all pre-New Breed. This is pre-New Breed. The book was not even written yet. He was still getting things organized with it. And there'd be a tape recorder behind him, and then across from him would be the drum set. So you get behind the kit, and he'd have mirrors all over the place. Mirrors in the front, to the side, because he thought it was very important how you look behind the drum set, not just how you play. I used to bite my lip, and he got rid of that really fast. He thinks that's wasted energy. People hang their tongue out. He always thought that was you get breathing. There was always these breathing exercises also. In fact, he sometimes would even put breath marks, little marks on the music, saying you got to breathe, because what would happen is we would start to do these what he called these systems, and these systems were put together to not just for independence, but to build stamina. There's because of the breathing along with it. He also had you sing the quarter note. Sing the upbeat of the hi-hat. If you're playing upbeats, 8th notes, sing that. Sing the melody line on the bass drum. Sing the snare drum line if that's just being 2 and 4, or whatever melody line you're playing on that. So you had to you had to play these systems several different ways because you had to sing it. And one of the things he would want you to do is try to sing in the sound that you were doing. So if you're singing the quarter note with your and doing the system 1, which is both hands together, playing 16th notes, sing the quarter note. And then since you're on the hi-hat, he'd say, go chick, 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 sing it that way. Or a bass drum, do boom or something like that. And so that would be a very important part of playing the systems, because it wasn't just reading the notes on the page, it was knowing exactly where the downbeat was, knowing how the spacing was if you're counting eighth notes on the upbeat. And surprisingly, I mean, you can play a pattern and play it fine, and then you start to do that and you start to mess up. So it sounds easy, but it is a lot harder than it and because you own the book and tried it, that it's a lot easier said than done. And so he'd be there and critique you, and again, he was like a father figure for a lot of us also. Sometimes the first 20 minutes of your lesson, he really didn't even talk about drums. It was something completely different about life. It was a Ludwig 5-piece kit. He had a cymbal on the right, a cymbal on the left. So because he had to have 2 rides. Well, it was a crash ride kind of thing. We'd crash on it when we ride on it. And so we had that. And then there'd be a floor tom on the right and a floor tom on the left. All right. We talk about, and this is still in the beginning, there wasn't, but eventually there was a second hi-hat off to the left. Now you're seeing that if you wanted, on that book, you're seeing 3 hi-hats, one in the conventional spot, one above that, similar to what I have, and then one also off to the right or in the middle, right? Because, that type of thing. We didn't have that at the beginning. We didn't have, but it was a sparkle, I want to say pink champagne, but don't quote me on that. And it's a set that he used on gigs. So this set was used by him. And in fact, some of it even had, I remember the snare drum had, the snare drum had a real calfskin. And and that's really tough to deal with, especially. But he'd have a high intensity lamp on it to keep it nice and tight and hot, so it wouldn't loosen up on us. But that's the kit we used. He would critique you, sit there watching. Sometimes he'd take some notes. What are you writing there, Gary? But he'd critique on what you're doing, and again, but very supportive also. He would either write out the melody line he'd want us to play, either on the snare or the bass drum or something, and tell us and write out the system. I'd write it down in a book I brought, so I know what to play when I get back home. So he'd tell us what system to play. Well, I'd go back home, and at that time, back in the 70s, I had a typewriter that wrote in script. And so I would type up the system. And when I got a full page, I'd make a copy and give it to Gary. So by the time I was finished, I had all the systems that he has typed out for him. And these systems were just being put together. So we had to use several other different kind of books because there was no new breed. One of them was Humphreys and one was Pace. And he'd say, okay, page, and I'm just taking an arbitrary page 17, 4th line down, 3rd measure in. Use that as a bass drum melody, and now we're going to use this system. So it was really enjoyable just showing up and talking about that kind of stuff, but also really just absorbing all the knowledge this man had playing on all these monster hits. He even said that if you play his systems, there should be nothing that throws you a curve. And then when a producer asks you, okay, can you tweak that? Can you make just bring me the bass drum louder? Everything else is fine. And then, because he makes you do that. He'll make you play a system, and this time, all right, make the bass drum louder. Okay, bring that down, bring the snare drum up. Because, again, that can sound easy, but, sometimes you have a problem. Like the snare drum gets louder, your foot gets louder too. He'd mess around with us. I mean, he'd give us a system to play. All right, and get back, and we go back and go home and do it like at 75 beats per minute, 80, maybe 80 at the tops. All right, so next week you come for your lesson. All right, get behind the kit, start playing it, playing the system at 75 beats per minute. After about 4 bars, okay, slow it down to like 50, something like that. All right, play it now. I didn't practice that way. And then totally mess you up. Totally mess you up because now there's a lot more space and you're singing the parts and it's just messing you up completely. So he played with your head that way, which is all a good thing. But the whole thing with that book and with Gary's systems, it's not about speed. It's about control, giving each note its true value and the spacing between the notes and just the articulation on what instrument you're playing it on. If you're playing broken 16th, make it so that's heard, so it's played properly on the bell of the cymbal or the ride cymbal or the hi-hat. So it was all about that, not about speed. What you're supposed to do is you take let's say the first system, and that's a system that is just take the right and left hand, keep it on your hi-hat, close your hi-hat, and play 16th notes, both hands together. Now that sounds a lot easier said than done because you get on there and you're going to flam like crazy. You can't flam. And now take that first page after all the systems, that first page of the book, and now put on that page on your bass drum. All right, that's your bass drum line. And now sing the quarter note. So you go through the whole page, sing the quarter note. All right. In fact, he even suggests that, just don't run through the whole page. Take one bar and repeat that until you're comfortable with it. Then move to the next bar. Repeat that until you're comfortable with it. Move to the next bar. Repeat, and then so on, if that's what has to happen. And he also recommends, so once you're getting used to it, don't even put a metronome on. Just get used to it. Get used to that, to what you're seeing and playing. Then put the metronome on. Start to sing to it, like we said. Sing, let's say, the quarter note first. Again, put it at a nice tempo. This is not supposed to be at a super fast tempo. And don't hit too hard. I mean, again, we're not spending a lot of energy hitting really hard. And then sing, the first thing would be the quarter note. And try to make it the sound that of part of the instrument you're playing. So as I said, if you're playing it on the hi-hat, closed hi-hat, you may want to sing chick, 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 that type of thing, because it makes a chick type sound. So probably use that sound while you're playing it. And he suggests playing each line at least 4 times through. And then drop down to the next one and do that whole page. Once you're comfortable and great with that page on that system, go to the next page and do the same thing. And do that same thing for the whole entire groupings of those pages that go along with that system. You'll now do a system of, let's say, 8th notes on your right hand with a closed hi-hat, 2 and 4 on the snare, again, the bass drum line from those pages again. And now, not only now are you going to sing the quarter note, you do that. Now you're going to sing the 2 and 4 on the snare drum. You're also going to sing your bass drum line. You also may even sing the upbeat, even though you're not, play just the upbeat on that. And he even suggested you can do that is sing the rests. I mean, sing the spacing in between the notes. So now you're not singing you're playing the quarter note on the downbeat, but now you're singing E and and you're not singing the downbeat. You're singing the spaces in between the rests and all that. That can get hairy with your head. And then when you're done with that, you turn right around, go back to the next system, and the next system is exactly the same system, but now all with the left hand. If you practice it the way he told you, you got it. Again, bringing this to how this has helped me with Stanton thing. Stanton has something, what he calls it the sidecar. Well, Gary was the same way. If you were going to have a second floor tom, put it on your left side. All right? Another snare drum, put it on your left side. Timbales, put it on your left side. Crowd, so the sidecar thing that Stanton talks about. Now, when it came to playing this way, you had all this you can use also if you had something else. Because that whole thinking of playing right and left-handed, being ambidextrous behind the set, comes from Gary saying, you put a little baby, a little kid behind the drum set, the kid's not going to go like this. And I tried it with my grandson. It works. Right away, behind the set, he's like this. So it makes sense. And he had a thing called territorial rights. You've got this half of your drum set and this half of your drum set. So you're playing, and you come to a fill, and you're finished with your fill, but let's say you finish it and you come this way. Well, to go back this way, why? Now just play like that. Plus, he also suggested, since that's your untrained side, because let's say you're right-handed, well then playing left-hand and all those left-hand leads, if you want to call it that, that's what he called it, left-hand leads, becomes your funkier side. Now, just the opposite, if you're left-handed, now your right-hand lead would be your funkier side because of that, your left hand is your more dominant hand. But he talked about that a lot. And so there was all with the territorial rights also. Studying with the new breed and studying with Gary helped me actually, first of all, build more confidence in my playing and being able to look at a situation and being able to size it up and not get flustered. Plus also, it helped me, I believe, with working on stuff from Stanton's side, what Stanton gives us, because again, he talks about the sidecar, the crowded left-hand side of the set, and he has us do things such as like the Mardi Gras go-go pattern. Well, you're playing a melody line off of, say you're using a hi-hat and then you have the snare drum, but now your left hand, if you do it left hand and you're on the Pantero drum, there's another melody line there. And I've heard students on the master class say, got to get that independence together. Well, unfortunately, or fortunately, because of working with Gary's stuff, that wasn't an issue. That helped immensely with what we're doing now, even with Stanton stuff. I'm very fortunate to have been in his presence and soaked up his knowledge, and he definitely, maybe not just a better drummer, I hope, but a better person.